Let's go to our next slide, and that is on page number 16, the councils. Who likes to read the first paragraph? Thank you, Jackie.
The entire Old Testament canon, without any of the apocryphal books, did not reach an official codified form in Judaism until the Council of Jamnia in AD 90, plus or minus AD 90. This was largely a Jewish response to Christianity that was producing new writings, what we call the New Testament, to add to what was already authoritative in Judaism.
Can I just stop you there? Just imagine, it is about 90 AD. You're now in the synagogue, and normally the rabbi or the priest will read from maybe Leviticus or Numbers, and all of a sudden he will say, oh, we got a letter from Paul. And they all knew Paul, he was the well-known apostle. And then they get a letter from Paul, and they're in Colossians, this congregation Colossians. And then they will read that. So during that time they had the Old Testament readings, and then the letters that were circulated. And then the Jewish people who didn't like Christianity said, we cannot allow those readings in our synagogues. And that was determined at the Jewish Council of Jamnia. And they've said, these books are our Bible. And for us as Protestants, that equals the Old Testament. Is that okay for you? Okay, next paragraph. Jackie, please, if you don't mind.
However, the 27 books of the New Testament did not emerge as an entire body of collected writings until well into the 3rd century AD at the Council of Carthage, AD 397. The Council of Carthage put their approval on the canon that was already read by and throughout the church. Even then, some of the books were debated. For example, Hebrews, James, the Revelation, and some sections of the church used books that were not accepted in other areas.
Thank you, Jackie. I like to tell the people that the New Testament, what we have, was formally fixed in Northern Africa at the Council of Carthage. And we need to understand that a council didn't give authority to the books. They already had authority. It's like a good golf player who will be inaugurated in a Hall of Fame. The Hall of Fame does not decide that this is a great golf player. The Hall of Fame just acknowledges the fact that this is a great golf player. So the councils just acknowledge the fact that these books are very authentic. It was read all over the place, so the council just put a stamp on it. These books have authority, and these books are our canon, the 27 books of the New Testament, fixed at the Council of Carthage. Any questions? Then we can go to the last paragraph, starting with the sentence, the word, so although. Who likes to read that? Thanks, Pete.
So although the New Testament took shape over roughly...
That's the missing word. You want to take a guess? The Old Testament took centuries because it was an oral and a written tradition. And how many years did the New Testament take in shape? 100 years. Almost 100 years. So the missing word is roughly 100 years.
Roughly 100 years, and was virtually complete by the early 2nd century AD. It took another 2 to 3 centuries for the church to begin defining the canon of the New Testament. However, the Christian canon was not officially closed until the tensions that erupted during the Reformation led to the exclusion of the Apocrypha by the emerging Protestants, which in turn led to the Catholic Council of Trent in AD 1546, that officially defined the Catholic canon, including the apocryphal books. The apocryphal books are being called the Deuterocanon Canon, Second Canon, by the Roman Catholics and are included in their Bible.
Thank you, Pete. Just to look at this slide. So the councils in this very complicating process determined what we have today. So the Bible just didn't drop from the sky. It was a long, complicated process in which we have the Bible as we have it now. I have on the slide in the right corner, bottom, you have the word Apocrypha. So for the Roman Catholic Church, what we see as Apocrypha books, they don't call it Apocrypha, they call it Deuterocanon because it has high value for them. Deutero means second canon. We get now to our next slide. That will be on page number 17. The empires in this process. We're not going to read that page. I will just show you because it's very easy to understand. First you have the Assyrian Empire. That's easy to remember. The first letter of the alphabet. Then the second letter of the alphabet is B, Babylonian Empire. Then you have the Persian Empire. And they represent the empires from the east. And then there came a swift to the west. Then the west took over the world with Alexander the Great in about 333 BC. And following the Greek Empire, we had what empire? What kind of empire?
Rome.
The Roman Empire. So during the time of the East, the Eastern empires, it was the Hebrew language. And then the Greek Empire took over with Alexander the Great, and then it was the Greek language, the New Testament. And then the Roman Empire took over the Latin language. Any questions? Let's go to page number 19. End remarks. Who likes to read the first paragraph with the heading, where does the name Bible come from? Thank you.
The Bible is the classical name for the Hebrew Bible of Judaism, or the combination of the Old Testament and New Testament of Christianity. The word Bible comes from the Greek
Biblia.
Thank you, meaning books, which in turn is derived from biblios, meaning papyrus, from the ancient Phoenician city of Byblos, which exported papyrus.
Just for intersect where the word Bible comes from. But in general, if you look on the screen, Bible means books. If you don't mind, read about manuscripts. There will be less difficult words.
Although we don't have the original manuscripts of the Bible, we do have manuscripts that still exist today. Some of the most important are the Dead Sea Scrolls. They were discovered in 11 caves along the northwest shore of the Dead Sea between the years 1947 and 1956. The Dead Sea Scrolls date from 200 BC to 70 AD and contain the entire book of Isaiah and portions of every other Old Testament book but Esther. There are over 5,600 early Greek manuscripts of the New Testament that are still in existence. The oldest manuscripts were written on papyrus, and the later manuscripts are written on leather called parchment.
Thank you. And then number 2, Codex Sinaiticus.
Contains the entire New Testament and almost the entire Old Testament in Greek. It was discovered by a German scholar,
Tischendorf.
thank you, in 1856 at an Orthodox monastery in Mount Sinai. In 350 AD, Codex
Vaticanus.
thank you, is an almost complete New Testament. It was cataloged as being in the Vatican Library since 1475.
Thank you very much. So the most important manuscripts we have will be the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus. And then if we turn the page, on page number 20, the Bible consists of 2 major divisions. These 2 primary divisions are the 39 books that consist the Old Testament and the 27 books of the New Testament. The names Old Testament and New Testament have been used since the close of the 2nd century AD to distinguish the Jewish, God's covenant with Israel, and Christian, God's covenant with people, scriptures. Testament was a translation of the Hebrew word berith, a covenant, to render the Greek word diatheke, and the Latin translation of diatheke is testamentum. This is why we call it Old and New Testament. Even though these books were written in different times and varying circumstances, they harmoniously complement each other and constitute a whole. It has been aptly remarked that the Hebrew Scriptures, that's the Old Testament, are the New Testament in prophecy, and that the New Testament is the Hebrew Scriptures in fulfillment. When one considers, and I like this paragraph, when one considers there were about 40 persons, many of whom from totally different backgrounds, and about 1,500 to 2,000 years consumed in the making of the Bible truly bespeaks inspiration, a book beyond the scope of mere humankind. No other book has influenced the thinking of humankind and the molding of their character as the Bible. And one person once said, the Bible is for sure the greatest monument of humankind. Just an easy way, if you look at the screen, to remember the 66 books. Old Testament has 39, and 3 times 9 is 27. Gives you the books of the New Testament. Add that, and you get your 66. I just want to say that I think the most important thing to remember in how the Bible came into being, it was a very complicating process. To tell us the Bible just didn't drop from the sky. God had involved people, councils, traditions, empires to give us what we have today. There's no other book in the history that came into being like the Bible. It is the greatest monument of humankind. That's why, and as you mentioned, Michael, we can trust this book. Or was it you, Joe? That we can trust this book. I'd like to hand you over now to your facilitator.